It's important to understand the difference between a layer 1 blockchain and a layer 2 blockchain. So at the beginning of cryptocurrency, there was always just layer 1. So Bitcoin is a layer 1 blockchain network. Ethereum is a layer 1 blockchain. Litecoin layer 1. Ripple is a layer 1. And those are all public, permissionless, layer 1 decentralized blockchains. Ripple, you can argue, semi-centralized, semi-private. But for the most part, layer 1, as an example for Ethereum, as you can see here, is at a high level, it has transactions that roll up into blocks. And then there's two types of rollups that are used to aggregate up transactions to be able to improve scalability and to improve speed and processing of those transactions and processing of those blocks under the umbrella of optimization. And there's optimistic rollups, and then there's zero CK rollups, right? So zero knowledge rollups. But ultimately, it's the same concept. So the concept is the intent of the rollups is to be able to aggregate up blocks without having to actually know exactly what is included in those rollups beyond just being able to have a sufficiently acceptable answer that what it is expecting to be included in those transactions and in those blocks is accurately what actually is being warehoused within that blockchain. So that's how rollups work, right? So they work as, think of them as they work as like validity proofs, right? So they validate and they show that there is in fact proof that this transaction has not been tampered in this particular block that's being settled on the main layer of layer 1, right? And examples of those are layer 2 blockchains and layer 3 blockchains. So for layer 1, we went through many of them. So there's Ethereum, there's BNB, Solana, Toncoin, Cardano, Avalanche. Some of these are all layer 1. And then layer 2 that are running on top of layer 1 blockchains, examples are some of the ones that we talked about before, which are Polygon, Mantle, Immutable, Arbitrum, Optimism, Scale. Some of these are rapidly being adopted globally in different geographical regions around the world. But what I like to track is, beyond just the market capitalization and the volume, is actually track the blockchain adoption statistics of each layer 1 and layer 2 to see if there's any potential breakouts in demand. And I enjoy it. It's fun. So this is what I do. So I like to look at L2 beat. I look at this regularly. And this basically gives you the ability to look at how much value is locked across the Ethereum-based layer 2 ecosystem. So Arbitrum 1 has 16 billion. Optimism has 6 billion, right? And it tells you exactly what is the type of optimization routine and rollup that's being used. If it's optimistic rollup, ZK rollup, it's all documented here. And then you can also look at layer 3 projects. So like the dGen chain that we talked about when we were talking about on-chain trading and using the trading terminals and the bridging services also. Rary chain is another, Dairy is another, Zai is another that we briefly went over that's focusing on gaming. Orb3 focusing on social platforms. So this site is very powerful in being able to it's co-funded by the Ethereum Foundation too. So they obviously have a vested interest in being able to provide this information freely. And it has everything that you would need to know to be able to have a good understanding of what layer 1, layer 2 blockchains and how value is bridging back and forth. Another resource is DeFi Llama. So DeFi Llama shows total value locked by blockchain, but they use a different methodology in terms of how they account for actual value locked. They also consider the value locked into a particular protocol on a decentralized application level beyond what L2 beat considers. And it's explained in like exhaustive detail, but just know that there is an actual pretty significant difference. Another thing is you can also look at bridged. So bridged TVL is interesting because this shows you what the total cumulative bridged TVL is. And then you can also go to bridges by chains. And if you zoom in, you'll be able to see how much has actually been bridged between layer 1 and layer 2 and vice versa. So you'll be able to look at deposits and withdrawals across different blockchains. So that's ultimately what layer 1 and layer 2 and layer 3 was made for. Layer 2 is ultimately made as an optimization solution, is to be able to help bundle up and roll up transactions up to a level where another blockchain can actually process some of that intensive work without having to rely on Ethereum, because the gas prices on Ethereum, which is the processing cost, was becoming exorbitantly high. I mean, you're talking upwards of $200 to $400 or $500 you'd have to pay at the absolute peak demand, and that led to the advent of layer 2 blockchains. And then but Solana very likely would have no need for a layer 2 blockchain, because it's functioning as a settlement and a validating and a processing layer for the entire blockchain. But it's compromising some security and some transparency and some authenticity in exchange for the convenience of fast processing. Ethereum tries not to do that. Bitcoin is still, to me, is the most decentralized. But these are things you'd have to consider. It's like the trifecta of blockchain, right? You have to consider like the scalability, the confidentiality, the privacy, the authenticity of the actual chain, whether or not it has validating nodes. These are all things that are important to keep into consideration when you're evaluating potentially what are some layer 2s that are interesting. So let's jump into blockchain adoption statistics. So let's look at, for example, I can look at Polygon Scan. So I will go to Polygon Scan, and this is a layer 2 that runs on top of Ethereum. And I can basically go into their charts and statistics section. And I just want to see, if I want to be able to look at their daily transactions, their unique addresses, average gas, and then daily active addresses that are just using URC. And you can see, so at a high level, it exploded in July of 2021. And then it had, and I would consider these definitely outliers. And this is probably some extremely active minting being done by some projects, or this is a spam attack. And this is what you could see back there. But generally, it's around 5 million, which is quite a bit. You're talking about a multiple of 2 or 3x higher than Ethereum. That's Polygon. Unique addresses, 418. But what I'm looking for, this. So the average gas price. And you can see it's been steadily rising, but generally pretty good. And this is actually pretty good as well. So it's 1.7 million unique active addresses that are being used. And then if you look at Etherscan, you can do the same by looking at their statistics. And let's look at, I want to see the daily active address is important. So you can see that we're nowhere close to 5 million, but I remember I bought in Ethereum when literally no one was using it, which could potentially be the prospective future of some of these layer 1 and layer 2 blockchains that have come up. Like Near is one that's potentially very interesting to me. So you're at 1.1 million, 1.2 million, and part of that is staking related, and part of the majority of transactions that are being made right now across all networks are actually comprised of staking and validating transactions. And then these are the daily active addresses. So these are actually a very good early indication of when the market is extremely hot. It's not complicated to track. And we have it also in the actual platform itself. We also have hash rate divided by price. So for the Bitcoin blockchain, so this basically tells you a very good high-level overview of when the market is extremely hot. And you could see that whenever the hash rate divided by price is plummets, then that could potentially be an early indication of a market peak. And anytime that you see that the hash rate divided by price is considerably higher than it has been in the past, that could be potentially could be signifying a market bottom, right? And that's the hash rate is how much computing power is being dedicated to that network, right? And if you're tracking it relative to price, then you're tracking, think of it as level of security relative to the actual market price. And whenever there's a massive disparity, that could be a good buy or selling opportunity. But we also have the transaction. We also have the number of transactions and the transaction types by blockchain all here. And then the other thing I wanted to show is that in the Block Circle research app, we have 18 different blockchains that we're integrating data from. So we have stable coins across all the major blockchains. We have Tron, we have Polygon, we have Ethereum across all those. We have over 1,000 assets. We have Ontology, Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, of course, and quite a bit more. So if you want to look at layer 2 statistics and different metrics to be able to research any type of breakout similar to this, you can do that just by clicking the actual asset. And then another thing I wanted to show was if you look at DappRadar, DappRadar is incredible because this shows you what are the most actively used decentralized applications by blockchain. So what you can do is you say chains, and then you say, I want to see which blockchains are being used the most actively. And you can say layer 1. So BNB chain, there's 5,200 dApps, but more importantly, there's 1.68 million unique users on I think this is the last week. Yeah. So this is the last week. So if we do the last 30 days, you can say there's 5.5 million unique wallets that are using the BNB chain in some capacity for decentralized applications, right? And Ethereum has 1.9 million. So, but you can also see the DeFi TVL. You can see the NFT volume. You can see the transactions. It's pretty incredible. So let's track it by user. So the number of users is why I was particularly bullish about the Near blockchain. Is I noticed when I was looking at the adoption statistics, I noticed this a long time ago that the number of active users was exploding on the Near blockchain, especially for gaming. So if you click it, you can see the activity, but you can see specifically which game is the most popular, right? And then the other thing is you can go to the actual games and then it'll give you a little marker for which blockchain this game is being played on. So like Pixels is being played on Ethereum and Ronin. Ronin is another example of an alternative blockchain that is considered layer 2 / sidechain. But yeah, this is how, so there's a lot of these applications that I would definitely recommend looking at and tracking. And then you can also see, if you use Solscan, you can track the statistics the same way. So you can look at the transactions per second. You can look at the number of blocks created. You can look at, let's look at the last all time. And this gives you the total number of transactions per second. And then you can track total number of, you see, voting and non-voting, and all of that is related towards governance control and towards staking and the security of the actual blockchain. So just always try to remember when you're looking at blockchain statistical analysis and you're comparing the adoption of different blockchains, is to back out and exclude out any type of transaction activity that's not related to an actual user doing something manually, rather than it just being, an automatic staking or unstaking or unbonding a particular staking contract. So those are all things to consider. So that is it. I think that covers everything I think you would possibly need to know about layer 2 and layer 3 and different side chains. Thank you.